Best way to bring freedom to Iran is to be on top of all the news and updates. And there's one queen bee of news and updates that we have as a uniter here, and that is through Paris Mansouri. So, our intent with these segments is to get a quick overview of what is, making news. And she's definitely one of those people that is always on top of it. So grateful to have her, not just as somebody who's going to share the news and updates, but as a uniter that spends her time with so much love and passion for the country to help us out and just be a great friend and family member of the Uniters. She's worked as a TV, radio, and print journalist and producer for over 20 years and is lending her support in producing this program. And so I'm happy to have her on. Please help me welcome the one and only Paris Mansouri.
Imogen, thank you so much for that intro. It's honestly a privilege to be among the Uniters. You have really assembled an incredible group of people. So thank you for that lovely intro, and I'll do my best to live up to it.
Of course, you always have and you always will. I've known you since 2008, if I'm not mistaken, during the Doha, Qatar days. So this friendship goes long and deep, and I'm very grateful for it. We're on day 130. Let's jump right into it. Last week, the European Parliament voted in favor of listing the IRGC as a terrorist organization. What has happened since?
So the Parliament voted in favor, but unfortunately, the EU itself, the 27-nation bloc, has not. They will not be listing Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization. Joseph Borrell, he is the foreign policy chief over at the EU, and he says that in order to list the IRCG as a terrorist organization, a member state has to pass a ruling condemning the IRCG for terrorist acts. That hasn't happened, and therefore they say they can't move forward with it. They are, however, saying that they are imposing new sanctions on the IRCG, basically Iranian officials and organizations, and basically those affected are government ministers, military officers, and Iran's morality police.
And as far as the JCPOA conversation, where does that kind of tie into all this, if at all?
Apparently, it's still an option. So the JCPOA will provide the Islamic regime with a lifeline if the agreement goes through. There has been a massive push to get the JCPOA off the table, but the EU says that it's not completely, they haven't walked away from it. Essentially, the Biden administration has been criticized for not walking away from it officially. They say that they're not taking part in any active conversations about it. But this week, Iran's news agency, Mehr news agency, has says that Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is actually going to Israel next week. And apparently JCPOA talks are on the table, and that's according to Iranian sources.
So obviously things aren't going exactly how we would ideally like for them to go. What are some of the action items that we should be looking into to make sure that we get the attention of the world and these leaders?
Look, number one is continuing the conversation. All activism, all conversation should be continuing. We should really be keeping this at the forefront. I know there's still cities and organizations that are planning protests, and there are large ones being organized for February 11th, which is Bistodoe Bahman. The cities right now that are taking part around the world, there's several in the US, around the world. It's Düsseldorf, London, Montreal, Toronto, Washington, and Sydney. But honestly, if your city is not on the list of those participating, please look into it. And nothing is stopping you. And obviously, you can contact Iman or check the Instagram account of @Let'sUniteAndConquer and see how we can help support you keep this moment alive and this movement going. The other thing is, this is for our American viewers. Some activists are highlighting the Mahsa Act. This is a bill that needs bipartisan support in order to not die, essentially. Some activists say that this is really the best chance to move forward the Iran agenda, and basically that this bill needs support. And that one activist who's really bringing forward and bringing to light the issues that the Mahsa Act highlights is actually Mahsa Townsend. She is a friend of the show, a friend of the program. And if anybody wants to learn more about the Mahsa Act, and if you're American and you want to know what you can be doing, what the Mahsa Act is about, I would highly suggest to follow her Instagram account. So if you head over to Mahsa_Townsend, you'll learn all about it.
Or just watch our first episode, and she'll give you all the information. But a couple of things I want to just kind of add to what you just said. You can go ahead and add South Florida and Miami to that list of cities, and started later on is going to talk about not just what we have going on in South Florida this Saturday, January 28th, but definitely we have February 11th on our calendar. For those who don't know the significance of Bisadoy Bahman, February 11th, could you just give a little short thing about what is Bisadoy Bahman?
Absolutely. It's basically a day that marks our history, and it's a day that, you know, depending on who you are, you may celebrate it, and depending on who you are, you may lament it, but it's something that we want to mark, and hopefully it's a day that we can put into history in a new way.
Yeah, lament is definitely the word for me personally, and I hope that everybody watching here is lamenting, and whoever is celebrating it, mark my words, this is the last time that you're going to be celebrating Bisadoy Bahman. I really hope that this will age well next year, but let's see. We're going to make it happen, everybody. All right. So what are the hashtags that we're following this week and should be using? You know, we've really realized how impactful this pressure on social media is. And it all starts with these freaking hashtags. They seem to work. So what are we focusing on this week?
Absolutely. So there is going to be some good news in this segment. So stay tuned to the end to see how this hashtag movement has helped an individual. But first up, hashtag IRCG terrorists. We don't care what the EU said. We are still going to be using that hashtag as much as possible on every
IRGC, sorry, just to clarify.
Yeah. What did I say? IRGC terrorists.
Yeah, GC, yeah, just want to clarify. We can't mess up that hashtag, you know?
Absolutely not. IRGC terrorists. The next one, unfortunately, we have a compatriot. His name is Majid Kazemi. He's been sentenced to death. Please be using his hashtag. And again, we are mentioning hashtags, but we fully realize that we can't get to everyone. We fully realize there are individuals who are taken in custody, who've gone missing, who we don't know. So with respect to all of those individuals, please know that we're not saying that this list is conclusive and final on any level. The other individual we want to highlight is Majid Imamvardi. He's a law student at Tehran University. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Armita Abbasi, we've seen her name, you know, for months and months. Many of us know her plight and basically the torture that she has suffered. She's been denied a lawyer, and basically her lawyer has been denied access to her. So she is going to court without any representation. Please use her hashtag Armita Abbasi. And finally, in good news, Mohammad Ghobarlu, who had been sentenced to death, the Supreme Court has said that they've accepted their appeal and they're basically going to have a retrial. So hopefully better news is to come. And the hashtag that we should continue using, obviously, hashtag Tumaj Salehi, hashtag Saman Yasin, hashtag Elah Mohammadi, Nilufar Hamedi, who broke the news of Mahsa Amini. Of course, Mahsa Amini is a hashtag that we'll forever use on this revolution. And finally, Iran Revolution.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all these news and updates, Parachute. And once again, thank you for everything you do for Countdown. We appreciate you. Much love. Stay tuned for next week, ladies and gentlemen. Paris is going to come back and let us know what kind of progress we're making. Shab khosh, Paris. Take care.
Good night.